I'm with my dear friend of. We were just trying to figure out exactly how long it's been. Mike Silverman. I started to say Mike Sullivan because I was just talk to Bill, and I came back. Correct me. We were trying to get the date exactly right. I came back from my first tour in Iraq, and went back on the locum tenens route back in 2003. Got kind of tired of that and decided that I would try to stay home a little bit more. And Mike Silverman at Harbor Hospital was kind enough to take on an old guy, take a chance on somebody who had been a director, and could have been a real pain. I say it could have been a real pain in the ass. Maybe I was a pain in the ass.
May have been, I don't know. It was a long time ago.
But yeah, I just remember some really. Harbor Hospital was this really a beautifully situated hospital, looked out over the bay in a really tough area. And I'll never forget when I would come in there to work at night. I always worked at night. Come in, and I would go from the parking lot and see this beautiful skyline of Baltimore, and it seemed so serene, and look out over the water. And then you'd walk into Harbor ER, and it would be absolute chaos. We were across the street from the projects, and
across the street from the police station.
Yeah,
it did have the best view. We had a great view of the fireworks. It was, it was great to come out of an overnight and catch the sunrise there. I had come in January of 2006 and brought in some change. I think the patient sat was low, the volume was low, didn't have good relationships with the EMS. And over those first probably 3 to 6 months, I think I may have irritated a few people who decided to leave. And so I'm pretty sure you started in spring of 2006 after I got a resignation or two from some night shift docs. And I would have hired anybody.
Well, thanks for the compliment.
But yeah, you worked out and came there and led to a lot of other things kind of outside of the emergency department that worked out well for me.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I just told you, one of the reasons why I enjoy these conversations is because I have a great deal of respect for you, and that's not just that's not so. When I came to you, I had been a director, 3 or 4 or 5 different places before I went on the road as a locums for a long period of time. And I'll be honest with you, I was a terrible director. I was absolutely, I couldn't manage people. I didn't know systems, and so when I came to work for you, one of the things that I recognized, and that's the reason why I actually asked you to start writing your column about a director's corner, was you were a good director. You were a really good director. You had systems. You were communicating with the administration. You communicated with us. You made changes. You weren't a jerk, but you could tell us if we weren't measuring up. And there's sometimes that I wasn't measuring up. And I remember coming out of those situations and those discussions, and I thought, damn, this guy's a pretty good director. And that's why I said, let's put that to good use. And you were a good communicator. And I said, let's try him with a couple of these columns, and they stuck, and people liked them, and I think that it was history since after that. So
it's been a lot of columns, and thank you. It worked out. It's been a lot of fun to write these and kind of connect with other directors and other ER docs that way. But now that you buttered me up, now we'll see what we're getting at there.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the reasons that I really enjoy talking to Mike is because we're really on different sides of the center line, so to speak. I will compliment him again and say he's center left. Okay, maybe he's a little bit more left of center left, but I'm definitely more right of center right. And he still puts up with me and communicates with me and doesn't write me off and doesn't call me too many names, at least to my face. And I think that he probably would if he felt that way. And so it makes for a good conversation about what I think are topics in emergency medicine that have multiple perspectives, and that our colleagues will also span that spectrum. And some will be way too far to the left of Mike, and some will be, maybe a few will be to the right of me.
Not many.
No, I'm not so bad. But it does. I think at least, let's put it this way. I think that you're able to give me the logic and the feeling and the emotion. And when we have JD on here, he wasn't able to meet today. When we have him on here, he also gives us the millennial. I'm 70. Mike, how old are you? You're 50,
55.
55. Okay. And and JD's gosh, what is he in his early 40s?
I mean, his 30s.
Late 30s. Yeah, just finished his fellowship, and he'd taken some years out. So it gives kind of an age, practice, experience, political spectrum kind of thing. So it helps us to hopefully air some things that the listeners might identify with, might disagree with, and might want to get involved in the discussion, because that's actually the purpose, is not for just us to talk, but the purpose is for us to spur conversation that people will jump in, ask questions, hopefully not just write me off, because I think that the world is probably to the left of me. And so anyway, so that's the purpose, and I think that's the reason why I enjoy talking to Mike.
So I never thought I'd be on any kinds of political discussion, and I usually frame things around the emergency department and what we need to do for work.
Right.
And I don't think any of my decisions are ever political in nature, but I recognize that we work. I mean, I work inside the Beltway. I work in a political hospital, and there's always politics, whether it's left or right, but there's office politics and politics and so forth.
Right. Yeah. And over the years, we always kind of thought that it was the main politics basically was between the emergency department staff and administration. Do they understand what we're getting into? Are they paying us adequately? Are they staffing us appropriately? And sometimes, in my writing, my column, I wrote a lot about the politics between doctors and nurses,
Right.
And how to get along with nurses, and how to actually help them help you, and not antagonize them. I remember writing a lot in the early years about feeding frenzies. I saw nurses, whole nursing staffs have feeding frenzies, which I thought were sharks on doctors that they did not like for various reasons. And once that happened, he was toast, she was toast, whoever it was.
Right.
You might as well just write it off and go home.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's so much of what I write about is communication, and whether it's kind of communicating with the C-suite, or communicating with nursing leadership, or communicating with our team, or other department chair leadership, so much of what we do comes down to the communication, how we communicate, the style we choose to communicate with, and I think I'd like to think a lot of my success as a chair has been because I can communicate well with others. As ER docs, we generally play well in the sandbox, which is, I think, why you start to see so many ER docs who end up becoming chief medical officers of hospitals, because they communicate well with others and can play in the sandbox.
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right, because very few other physicians have to work with other people so closely. You've got people all around you. It's not like you control your world. You really don't. You've got to play with a whole staff. Often, the larger the volume, the more docs, the PAs, the nurses, and you're directing a whole team, and you have to do it very gingerly. Now, the next step, that I think that the emergency medicine has taken is this politics of corporate America. Okay, and I say corporate in America, I mean corporate emergency medicine.
Mhm.
That's been going on since the beginning of emergency medicine, when these small groups started out by guys who knew nothing at all about emergency medicine. I remember one of the largest groups in the country, I won't mention them, was started by an OBGYN, probably had never been in an emergency department, and made millions and millions of dollars staffing emergency departments with people who had no business being there. But he filled a niche that ERs couldn't find docs, and he put people in there.
Mhm.
And I've worked for him at various times.
I may have worked for him as well, though I'm blanking on his name.
Well, I'm not going to mention his name, but there were more than just one. There were numerous guys who started out in emergency medicine like that, or started corporate emergency medicine like that, and so that was a political football. AAEM started out as the rape of emergency medicine. I forget who the guy who wrote that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But he was, it was his cause for his life was to bring down corporate emergency medicine, and so we've seen some of the large groups recently. I don't know if your group is a part of Envision or was InCare, but the big $27 million settlement or case against them for supposedly upcoding or whatnot. So that became a political football. Should you work for a CMG, contract management group? Should you work for? I worked for tons of them. I thought they were great, and or should you be a diehard private group? Is yours a multi-hospital group now?
Yeah, so I'm in a large multi-hospital group. I've done the traditional, I worked for all of the big groups in the late 90s when I finished residency. The guy, and I'm blanking on his name as well, the guy who wrote the book, The Rape of Emergency Medicine, he gave grand rounds to us when I was a resident. And so I was aware of that. But, I've kind of chosen my jobs based on location, hospital, the team I'm with, and always figured, you kind of get paid fairly. So certainly coming out of residency, I wasn't so focused on being part of a Democratic group. I didn't really care about that. I wanted to go in and do the work and be with the group of people that I was with in the emergency department. And I've been with the largest, the big contract management groups. I went to a Democratic group, and that was sold and kind of rolled over, and I'm now with a large group. But for me, it's really about, I guess there's two sides of it. As a clinician, it's about where do you work? Kind of, is the hospital close to where you want to live? Is the pay fair? Do you have a good payer mix, or do you have a good patient population? Not really a payer mix, but do you have a patient population that's the kinds of patients you want to take care of as an ER doc? And I think there's people that want to work at low resourced hospitals with patients who don't have access to primary care because they want to provide that service. There's people that want to work in trauma centers. There's people that want to work in the boutique hospitals. So I think the mix is all over the place, and it's more about kind of what patients are you looking for, where the hospital is, and I'm going to assume you get paid fairly in that. So on the kind of management side, I would say it's about what kind of infrastructure and analytics are supported there. So I really never worried. When we were at Harbor, we worked for Team Health for years. And I thought they treated us well, and I thought they gave us what we needed to do to be successful. I had no concerns about working for them. On my current side, there's infrastructure and data analytics and tools and access to other quality pieces that help me and my team become more successful. So I think it's an individual choice, but I suspect most people aren't so politically motivated about this. Because they're much more interested in, I want to work here. I want to work there.
more practical. One of the things that I think that people raised, issues that people raised was stability. You know, one of the things that I encountered directly out of residency, I went and worked for a group that promised me a partnership, a private group, who said, you know, come and work for us for a year. It was back in the, you know, 82. Work for us for a year and we'll make you a partner. Worked for them for a year. And the guy, I said, you guys going to make us a partner? I said, what about partnership? The guy slapped me on the back and said, howdy, partner. You know, they weren't about to make us partners. You know, it was just a big lie. And so at that point, my friend from the residency and I went down, and actually, this is the good old days where 1 year out of residency training, a hospital hired me and my partner to be the co-directors of an emergency department, a pretty busy emergency department. I mean, we didn't know anything at all about management or contracting or anything like that. And like I say, we were going to build a private group, and we had the same sorts of dreams that a lot of people had, and that is, well, our private group, we'll build our private group, then we'll sell it, and we'll be millionaires. And so we promptly offended every every general practitioner in the hospital staff by referring patients, instead of according to a rotation, according to who we thought were good physicians. And we got fired. Okay, the whole entire group got fired on April Fool's Day, and that was cited as the reason is because we weren't referring to people we thought were incompetent, to be perfectly honest. And we had evidence that they weren't competent, but that was not the issue. You can't play hospital politics like that.
So I think emergency medicine management has gotten very, very sophisticated compared to 40 years ago, literally. And there are, there's lots of really, really good Democratic groups. There's lots of really good groups that are kind of hospital run, where the hospital is a system and they have docs who do their ER. And I think there's lots of good medicine and management being practiced in many of these large groups.
Yeah.
I think the days of kind of being a year out, I think the days of being a year out and going and being a chair, for the most part, are gone. That happened to people I knew after residency as well. Is you could move to an area that didn't have sophisticated medicine and in the ER, and you generally weren't qualified to do it and know what you were doing. I sit in some of these meetings. I don't understand any of the business. I'm an ER doc and an ER director. I can manage the people. I can manage hospital relations, but when it comes to negotiating with insurance companies, what do I know about that? That's not what I do. And in fighting for reimbursement, are we going to appeal this or not? How many cases are there? I have no idea, and I'm glad we have business people to kind of sort that out.
Yeah. Well, that was the kind of, if you will, the next phase, or the kind of working from microcosm to macrocosm. That was the next phase of politics or political conflict in emergency medicine, was within your own hospital, and then dealing with groups or the idea of national groups, or how are you going to work, or you think you're going to make money off of the new guys? Does a guy who's been there 10 years get paid more per hour than the guy who's there to start with? In some of I have been really shocked to see some of the private groups, the independent groups, how shabby the initial docs treatment and scheduling and all that is compared to the guys who've been there a long time. They really have to sacrifice if they want to be a part of that group. And yet I've also seen groups that they were completely flat from day one. And it seemed like they weren't really valuing the guys who'd been there a while. And so it's the politics, intra-group politics of trying to value the guys with the experience and value the guys who are at the same time the guys who are just coming in. I think those are tough issues, and you've addressed a lot of that stuff over the years in your columns, I think, at various times.
Yeah. I looked at two different jobs. I looked at a variety of jobs coming out, but two were in these kind of democratic groups where you phase in and over 3 years, you end up making more money. But the first couple years were really low pay, and I had loans and all the standard things that people have. And I didn't think it was the right thing for me. It was the right thing for a lot of people, but it wasn't the right thing for me. And, I look at those sites now, and I know people that work in those groups, and they're great groups and great hospitals. And probably 2 years later, I would have been really happy there.
Yeah.
But at the time, it wasn't the right thing. And I think that the whole, I am more of a believer that kind of split up the profits and everybody should get paid more or less the same thing. But also over the last 20 years, I've built a lot of productivity-based compensation programs, or I built some productivity-based compensation programs at places I've worked and I really do believe that there's something to that where, hey, if you're a lot faster, you should probably make more money. Not everybody should come in and get paid the same. You shouldn't get paid the same as the doc who kind of comes in and is seeing 1.3 patients an hour, and you're seeing 2.3 on a busy evening shift.
Yeah.
So, you find if I was a new doc, I'd kind of find the culture that interests me, and probably worry less about who's writing the paycheck, because the market price is the market price for the hourly rate. I work inside the Beltway. I make a little bit less than somebody who's down in Mississippi. He makes more down there. I choose not to live in Mississippi. I want to live in Maryland.
That's your center left coming out, by the way.
It is, but I got my crab back over there.
I hear you.
Yeah, so I haven't worried that much about it.
Yeah.
I do really worry about where I work is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And again, I'm part of a big national group, and so I certainly see the infrastructure and the analytics that they bring to the table, and the development that they bring to the table for me and my team.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you though. Okay, before we're getting close here, and let me ask you though. Do you think there's value? The worth of a group. It's kind of like a brand. Okay, Emergency Physicians Monthly now has been around since 1992. That's 30 years. Okay, that name is yeah, I had to do the graph real quick. That brand is 30 years old, and it's worth something. And it's built on the quality of writing and all the production and all the things we've done over the last 30 years. If you translate that to a group has value, and that value is the result of the people who've been there, and it goes beyond just patient care, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm just wondering whether there is something to be said politically. This is a political discussion. There is something to be said for the guys who are doing the same job, seeing the same number of patients, but he's been doing it for 20 years, as opposed to the guy who's just coming in, and he's a good doc, but he's new, and nobody knows him. It's not built on the fact that Mike Silverman's been with us for 20 years. We know Mike Silverman. I mean, for instance, the contract is likely to stay solid because you're there, because you're the man. You should be paid more for that.
At an hourly rate inside the emergency department for what we're doing, I don't know that matters. I get an administrative stipend to be chair, and my job is to kind of do my job so that we have the contract. And I think there's value for these groups that are in EDs for a long time and working. I don't know how to kind of balance that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It-
hard. The
there's
measure.
a lot of there's a lot of ways to do it, and I think that there is a lot of value that the guys who have been in my site for, I have a guy who's been there 30 years, and I got a couple that have been there 15 to 20. That they bring a lot of value with medical staff and the relationships they have, but they're not orthopedists who have patients coming back to them because they're such a skilled orthopedist and do the other knee or the other hip, or they're sending in their sister to have, it's not that kind of type of medicine that's based on referrals in and you're busier because your reputation's there. And I think that's the really hard part about emergency medicine is our value and stability is really the medical staff and the care that we provide and what we do inside of the hospital and being good citizens of the hospital. But that is has to be the culture of the emergency department.
Yeah.
And less about kind of the patient referrals.
I'm going to make one final comment, and then we're running out of time, so we're going to jump to the next thing. But I would say that the stability of the group, oftentimes, the value of that guy who's been there 30 years is not to the patients; it's to the hospital administration. Hospital administration, that job, that group is going to have that contract for years to come because of the stability and the work ethic and the personality and such of the guys who have been the face, if you will, have been the reputation of that group. So that's the counter to that. We're gonna move on to some other things at our next podcast. So don't stop listening to Mike and Mark because we've got lots to talk about. I hope everybody's enjoying this conversation. Stay with us with EP Talk.